everyone, welcome back to Crypt. Oh my god, I've got a fun story for you. We're just gonna dive into a little bit of like cultural juice and I'm excited about it. Usually I cover like topical news and stuff. Now I just have a moment to get into one of the things that brings me joy in this industry because honestly it's been tough lately. So let's go. Bam! Okie dokie, to get some news out, I mean, just in the mass adoption curve, we are seeing it happen day in and day out. Today, we get this news that Fortune 500 firm Fiserv to launch stablecoin on Solana using Paxos and Circle infrastructure. So Paxos plus Circle, this really just means the foundational blockchain, cross-chain, stablecoin issuance, managerial infrastructure that it requires to operate a stablecoin. Now keep in mind, stablecoins, they are not like assets on chain, right? Like Circle holds dollars and it issues a coin, but it can claw it back, it can freeze it, it can basically take a coin on one chain, just delete it, move it to another chain, right? They're very much like a metadata of a real dollar versus like a crypto native asset that you actually hold in your wallet and that you have self-sovereign custody of. However, this is pretty wild because Fiserv will issue FIUSD on Solana, again, offering 24/7 settlement. So this is where blockchain really starts to shine, right? You can move money any day of the week, any time, and it will settle immediately. There's no more Western Union kind of having the weekends baked in or some sort of holiday. Like if you need to get money somewhere, you can do it. Now, it's going to be crazy to have this out in the world, and we're still probably going to see bank wires charging $25. So like that's going to be just kind of a fun little period of like WTF. One thing to really notice is, again, the stablecoin will debut on Solana, and it will slot into Fiserv's core banking stack, which caters to almost 10,000 financial clients and 6 million merchants worldwide. Suffice it to say, stablecoins are here and we are going to use them. I've been saying this over and over again. The last thing that we need for true mass adoption is just that final tap in the point of sale service. If we get that through Stripe, again, which recently moved into the stablecoin space, then it's just a matter of time before Apple, before Google Pay all start to begin to allow you to tap to pay. At that point, it's going to be very questionable as to what the future of credit cards look, because honestly, it doesn't look good. Now, just moving on to the Treasury story, we are in this phase of like the Bitcoin accrual race. I've talked about it a lot, and this is just a little update. Look, we've got 4 businesses, each acquiring a shit ton. Locate Tech, all right, 4 Bitcoin, but whatever. Strategy, 245 million, doing 596, and of course, Metaplanet JP with 1,111 Bitcoin. So that's pretty nuts. And again, Metaplanet has just taken the Japanese market by storm, especially in a country that has a very aggressive inflationary environment right now. So the race for Bitcoin's on. I mean, is Bitcoin a legacy asset now? Probably. If you can get 1 Bitcoin and keep it in the family, good for you. Now, what I really want to talk about today is just this super organic, spontaneous combustion of a Solana fork called Gorbagana. Now, what does that really stand for? I mean, it's a combination of garbage and Solana. And let me just get into this really quickly. So I've talked about Gabe Shapiro because I like him a lot. He is really the bleeding edge of law and cypherpunk. Now, Gabe comes from big law, mergers and acquisitions. He really knows his stuff. But like me, he departed his career path back in 2017 to go all in on this funky world that we have chosen to live in. He equally, like me, has been disappointed in a lot of what's happened in crypto lately, right? Which is just the egregiously large raises, the retail being used as exit liquidity, and it just hasn't been exciting, right? We both got into it for Ethereum, for the idea of an open internet that anyone could access. So he really starts with this conversation talking about ownership and branding, and it's kind of funny because he's coming from an ETH Maxi point of view where the Ethereum name, and he has it in here, is kind of spread out, right? There's Etherealize, there's Ethereum Classic. The trademark ETH isn't really controlled by the Ethereum Foundation, and that's kind of what he started to talk about in this initial post. Now, he gets back and forth with Solana's co-founder, and they just kind of have this little rap session about branding. So he brings up this hypothetical: 2 forks, one is called Solana, has the ticker Sol, and has the Solana logo. One is called Gorbagana, and has the ticker Gor, and has Oscar the Grouch as a logo. Which one's going to be more valuable? So Tolly comes out, and this is really the inception of this crazy organic movement, which it says, if there is not a Gorbagana chain in 48 hours, I'll be severely disappointed. Whichever one has the majority of business value on it, really talking about who gets the Solana logo, right? So which chain Solana Foundation picks to apply Sol trademark to will strongly influence which chain has the majority of the business. So again, very fun, very exciting. And what this does, this call to action right here, right? This, if there is not a Gorbagana chain in 48 hours, well, guess the fuck what? The community came online, a Gorbagana meme coin hopped on. Gabe, he's a smart lawyer. He knows the repercussions of getting involved. So he spends his whole weekend, I'm like talking back and forth with him on DMs, and I bought a little bit of the meme coin, but you look at this thing and you're like, what the hell is going on? Well, it picked up like nobody's business. A variety of developers came on, people started to build. Then it turns out that one of the lead devs at the end of the weekend was like, screw this. And he took everything that he built with him. New developers were sourced, they got on board, and we just have this really exciting chain that took off. So there's a couple fun outcomes, right? Snapshot taken. And this was on the 19th, right? So all of this really happened end of last week over the weekend. And they just grinded. So they started to fork Solana based on what was out. Now, one of the interesting things was they realized that unlike Ethereum, if anybody's familiar with an Ethereum wallet, you can open up RPC endpoints. Now, RPCs are essentially nodes. It's through a node that a user accesses the blockchain itself that you're able to put out or receive a transaction, right? Now, a wallet is not operating a node. A lot of people don't want to run them at home or things like that. So an RPC endpoint is basically someone running a node. Your wallet talks to that RPC endpoint, and that's how you go from wallet to blockchain. That's it in a nutshell. On Ethereum, you can just bang them into pretty much any wallet. It's like a standard thing because there's lots of chains that are capable and because there's lots of chains that are compatible with the EVM, the Ethereum Virtual Machine. Solana started out much more centralized. The decentralized thing is up for debate, but it turns out that all the popular wallets just would not accept new RPC endpoints. And Gorbagana, being a different Solana virtual machine platform, required its own RPC. So they go out, they run through all of the wallets. It turns out that Backpack, which is actually founded by some of the ex-FTX guys, was the only one that allowed for a new RPC connection. So they get online with the Backpack team. This is all happening like Friday, Saturday. They all build together. Everyone's super excited. And well, they launch this chain, and it's pretty wild to see, right? It's now up and running. It's got over 14 million transactions, and they have Gorbagana just like functioning. And this is all organic. Everybody donated their time. Now, what was really interesting was, unlike an ICO, which was supposed to be the egalitarian way to get into a project, they never sold their tokens. They launched this thing as a meme coin. So all 1 billion supply were immediately out there to be attained. If anyone wanted to purchase it, you could just go trade this thing like you could trade any other meme coin. However, over time, the development started to become real, right? People looked at this thing and they said, hey, I'm going to value this like an L1. So this meme coin got up to a $40-50 million market cap, which for a meme coin is very high. And people go, this is suspicious. Like, why would I invest in a meme with no substance? But over time, and the more energy, the more substance there was. There were call outs on X with a wallet to say, hey, if you want developers to get paid, donate here. Now, it's really exciting because they're actually looking at this in a fundamentally different way than Solana. Solana wants to be decentralized. They argue about increasing their validator set, right? Spreading out the geography of the people running the validators. And Gorbagana goes, we don't care about that. We're going to run it on a single validator, right? This is all a joke. It's the garbage version of Solana. Now, we see single validators with Ethereum L2s, so it's not super crazy. Like, Coinbase's base is all operated by Coinbase. They have a single validator. They get to decide on the orders of the transactions. That's how an Ethereum L2 works. You lose that egalitarian placement of the transactions in order for very reduced fees and very quick times, high speed. That's the trade-off. Of course, they peg that into Ethereum, so the idea is you inherit that security every block that goes into ETH. Now, they're doing the same thing with Solana now. So they're like, let's just run a single validator. It can allow us to test all sorts of things that maybe Solana doesn't want to test. And they're really looking at this as like a skunkworks kind of project to say, hey, maybe in the future, if Solana wants to run an update, but like, not everybody loves it, not everybody agrees with it. Well, now there's Gorbagana, and it's garbage Solana. So you can test it, you can mess with it. It's not as high value as the Solana ecosystem. And this became a really novel concept. And a lot of Solana people were like, we don't actually hate this. This is good for the industry. So a lot of this development has been taken over by 8-Bit, this fine guy here. And he actually proposed something very interesting on a call recently. I was unaware that about 50% of internet traffic in the United States goes through Virginia. So they were like, if we can raise like $50,000, we can put a big, beefy beefy validator in Virginia, and will basically be the fastest chain de facto in the US. It's just going to be what it is. It's a single validator. So, like, fuck decentralization. We're not talking about that. But this is for fun. This is for experimentation. All of this happened in 48 hours. They got this chain up and running. So, this is so cool. It also proved how difficult it was for Solana to fork, which in and of itself just kind of brings to light a lot of things that people like to virtue signal about, but you never know until you try it. Now, 8bit's been doing all sorts of fun stuff. They recently put out an application for buyback and burn and trying to mimic a lot of the things you see on Solana, but he's got the very first Gorbagana verified chain. It uses our Gor token to verify you're a holder. And then if I ever get funding, I could initialize the Treasury. But like, stuff is starting to happen and people are starting to contribute. It's very exciting. I made a couple tweets about it. We were just lolzing back and forth, and an entire community gets into my DMs. What are you going to do about this? Are you going to launch this project, right? One of my posts was like, hey, I made the first deep end project on Gorbagana. It's a Roomba, but instead of cleaning up your house, it makes it dirty, right? And people go, Graham, are you building this? How can I fund it? It was like utterly insane. Followers out the wazoo. Super, super fun. So Gabe got caught up in all of this energy until he realized just like how scammy it is and how wild it is. And of course, we have brought to light the reality of this very strange dichotomy inside of crypto, which is that we want to support creators, but we also find that when somebody creates something and there's a speculative capability, well, all the speculators hop into your life and they start placing demands upon the creator. And suddenly what we thought was liberating you from a captive platform like YouTube or the App Store, you're now captive to this audience. So what is going to be super important moving forward is to actually build a real authentic community that cares about what you're building, because as long as it's pure speculation, they're just going to inundate you with expectations and demands. And this is all fascinating from a sociological point of view, fascinating from a technological point of view, and hell, just a lot of fun, right? Like, all of this was spontaneous. And again, when these things happen, when the energy flares up, it's very contagious. You're like, oh, there's something organic, there's something real happening. But the fact that these tokens were out there, if you were following along, if you were getting excited by this, you could buy in and hope to see some upside. Obviously, it's a meme coin, so it's very dangerous. Its whole theme is garbage Solana, but I don't know, maybe at the end of this, most of this stuff is garbage. So like, it is a real kind of narrative take, and in so many ways, that's the joy of all of this. And we have to remember that, I've talked about the broken market structure and how crypto really leaned into Silicon Valley venture style, right? Of extremely high valuations, overpriced technology with no product market fit. And the second it went public or goes to retail, it just goes down and to the right. And this is so, so damaging. Like, all of my friends in the normal world only think of crypto as the Trump grift. Like, I got nobody else beside it. They're like, I don't want to touch it. It's clearly just Donald Trump crap. And that's so unexciting. And we all got into it for the open, available experimentation. But the more teams just raised money from Andreessen Horowitz, from Sequoia, things like that, I mean, they were just building behind closed doors until they finally launch. And all these things are building, maybe they're cool, like Barachain. I mean, I covered that. I love the idea of proof of liquidity, but now that it's out and like they have to get to product market fit, that price is just selling day over day. And of course, every day that passes, the more tokens get closer to unlocking, right? We have this built-in sell-side pressure, which is why Hyperliquid is doing so good. It broke that mold. And here, Gorbagana shows us a new financing mechanism. So in lieu of the ICO, we can do a meme coin launch. It's got plenty of its own flaws, right? Like, who has the majority of the supply, right? The minter address, like, is it tied to pump.fund? But this is experimentation, and this is really with no fiduciary duty. Everybody's saying like, look, we're having a good time, we're just dicking around, we're going to try a variety of things. But it's been so fun to watch real things come out. Obviously, there's a ton of content now being generated. I mean, AI makes it easy, and there's this very high level coverage by Keys sort of on what the fuck is Gorbagana, and it just kind of covers the narrative, and it's a lot of fun. But if you want to play with it, it's so easy to set up, so you can be at the bleeding edge of a brand new blockchain. And let's just get like into the optimistic lens. What if a Solana fork, in the same way Litecoin to Bitcoin or Ethereum Classic to ETH popped up, but it's coming from like that meme place, right? Solana became the home of the meme coins, and it expanded memes into a way we had not really expected, for better or for worse, for our industry. And suddenly they have a meme fork. Like, the foundation, the core of this whole thing is about mimetic culture. So I mean, it just sort of folds in on itself. There's something of like of a philosophical study in here, but right now it's just a lot of fun. So this was something that was extremely cathartic and just rewarding to see a community come together where the more that people contributed, the more the token price increased, and the more the token price increased, it actually incentivized the developers to develop. This was the bootstrapping mechanism that blockchain was always supposed to be about. Of course, we skipped over that part where anyone could buy early and ride that price up, and we went to the venture capital capture. And really, I have to blame project founders for that because they were the ones that accepted raising all of this money, accepted pushing their fully diluted valuations, accepted giving away all of these tokens to partners, to venture investors, to exchanges, to market makers, and accepted the fact that their users, the retail, would ultimately be the exit liquidity. And that is where our markets are broken, and we will have to fix that in response. Who knows what's going to happen with Gorbagana? Will the energy continue to last? Will it die out and just be, another great weekend for the books? But I gotta say, for the first time in a long time, this was so enjoyable and electrifying. And fuck yeah to Gorbagana. So if you want to get in there and click around a little bit, hop into this keys. It will be in my sources and it will give you the full breakdown of how to connect. As always, stay safe, don't lever up too much, and I'll see you tomorrow.